Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a 12-team PPR mock draft from the 11th overall spot over on FantasyPro's Draft Wizard. We are going to be drafting up against the Yahoo pre-draft rankings, so it's going to be a lot like we are doing an actual mock draft on Yahoo. I have looked at the ESPN and NFL.com pre-draft rankings, and to me, they don't look super accurate. They have Alexander Mattison ranked as like player 150, which just is not very accurate to what would actually happen. I think Yahoo does a good job at updating their pre-draft rankings early on in the offseason. The roster positions for today's mock draft are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, flex, kicker, defense, and 6 bench spots. Before we do get into this mock draft, though, I would like to ask that if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into this 12-team PPR mock draft from the 11th overall spot. Now, I have been doing a bunch of best ball drafts over on Underdog Fantasy, and I have been getting just screwed over a little bit because every single draft I've done has been basically from picks 9 through 12. Now, in prior seasons, I have loved picking at picks 9 through 12. I loved picking on the turn, but this year, sometimes, I want to get Justin Jefferson. I want to get Jamar Chase, so not having those early picks when you do a bunch of drafts obviously sucks, but I do understand that you can win your draft at any pick. You can dominate from pick 1 all the way until pick number 12. So the first round begins with Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Cooper Kupp. I think how the first round went here is very typical to what's actually going to happen in your fantasy football league. Now, we have seen a lot of best ball drafts in a lot of more sharper rooms that the more experienced players want to draft wide receivers more often in the first round compared to years prior. In years prior, it was a running back run early on in fantasy football drafts. The first 5-6 picks might be all running backs, whereas this year we are seeing wide receivers get moved up heavily, and I've done a ton of drafts where only 3 running backs go inside of the first round, which is very, very different compared to what we've seen over the last couple of years. Travis Kelce is a staple inside of the first round this season. So looking at the board right here, looking at who's available at the 111, looking at running backs, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson, Nick Chubb. I really like Nick Chubb this season a ton. I think he could easily finish as a top 3 running back, given the fact that I think Deshaun Watson bounces back. But do I want to draft my boy 9-inch Nicholas Chubb in the first round? The answer is no. Now, Travis Kelce is already off the board to me. He's kind of an insta-click at the 1.11. This is a guy that might finish 3 or 4 points per game on average ahead of the tight end number 2, whether that ends up being George Kittle, Andrews, Hawkinson, Goddard, Pitts, or magically Cole Kmet, right? So I think that Kelce is basically a cheat code in fantasy leagues. He's a guy that I am just salivating for in a 10-team league. In a 12-team league, I don't think he is as needed, or in an 8-team league, I definitely want to get Kelce, but at where he went at the 109, I think that's very acceptable, and I wouldn't be surprised if he went in like the 107 in a bunch of leagues. So again, we're kind of ruling out the running backs at this pick. I wouldn't hate getting Jacobs in the second round, but in the first round, I just want to go with a wide receiver. Stephon Diggs, CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Adams, AJ Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown listed as the best available. Now, I was a little bit worried about Stephon Diggs a little bit ago because it seemed like he was just wants out of the Buffalo Bills. There was all that anger in that Bengals game where he was just chomping at Josh Allen, and then it comes out that he's not even been with the team, but he did return to minicamp last Wednesday, so I think we should be very confident that he's going to start this year with the Buffalo Bills. He doesn't necessarily just want out. He's not going to diva his way out of there. The Buffalo Bills have one of the best offenses. They have one of the best quarterbacks, and Stephon Diggs is one of the better wide receivers in the NFL, so he's kind of a no-brainer pick, in my opinion, in the first round. After we see Stephon Diggs, Josh Jacobs, and 9-inch Nicholas Chubb come off the board, it's going to be very interesting to see as we get later and later on in the fantasy offseason, as we get closer to where a lot of people are doing their drafts in late August or early September, where the fuck the quarterbacks are going to go, because we see some drafts where a lot of the time Josh Allen, Mahomes, Allen, my top 3 quarterbacks, not necessarily in that order, are gone by the 3rd round. Are we going to see them start getting taken in the 2nd round, or are they kind of just going to sit in the 3rd round in most drafts? Now, I definitely am not even considering at all a quarterback at pick number 14 at the 202, but I do think it is interesting. Looking at the running backs available, Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson, Derrick Henry, Breece Hall, Najee Harris, this room feels like a room where there might be a million other running backs taken before I get to pick again, and I'm just going to have to make that assumption, and sometimes the assumption makes an ass out of you and me, and I draft a running back here, and then no running backs go, or not a lot, and I would have been happy here getting my first running back at the 3.11, but with how running back heavy this room is, and this is something that I've talked about a ton in the past, you want to adjust to your room. We are going to go with a running back here. Personally, I think I like Tony Pollard the best out of this group, but I do flip-flop all the time. I love Derrick Henry. I love Ramondre Stevenson. I do worry that Pollard might get some competition added in this backfield. Zeke was rumored to potentially maybe come back. Leonard Fournette could go there. We could see Dalvin Cook show up there. I'm going to go with Tony Pollard again, assuming they don't bring in Dalvin Cook. Even if they bring in Leonard Fournette, I think Tony Pollard is still worthy of a second-round pick. This guy is fantastic at catching passes. He could be a potential workhorse running back, getting a bunch of touches. Besides him, who else do they have? They have Deuce Vaughn, Malik Davis. I mean, those are guys that, sure, they can work in the offense, but they're not going to take over for Tony Pollard. After Pollard, we see Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, Derrick Henry, Breece Hall, A.J. Brown, Travis Etienne, Ramondre Stevenson, Garrett Wilson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Najee Harris closes out the second round. The third round opens with my boy Jalen Waddle's away, waddle, till the very next day. Kenneth Walker to the third, Miles Sanders, Higgins, Chris Olave, Pat Mahomes, Mark Andrews, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen. So in this draft, all of the big three quarterbacks gone in the third round, which I think at this point is the normal. So we were right in drafting Tony Pollard because Henry, Hall, Etienne, Stevenson, Kenneth Walker, Najee Harris, and Miles Sanders off the board. If you take Miles Sanders in the third round, I am seriously questioning your thought process, because I think Miles Sanders could have a good year in Carolina, right? I don't think the Carolina Panthers are just some garbage can of a team. I think Bryce Young adds a lot to that offense, but I'm going to keep it 100. No way Miles Sanders is worthy of a third-round pick. Like, could he finish as top 12 back? Yes, but ahead of guys like Gibbs or Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, to me, that just does not add up. Since this does appear to be a running back heavy room, I think we're going to double dip here with the running backs. Joe Mixon, I think, definitely will end up moving his way up to a third rounder if he doesn't get a suspension. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about a potential suspension. I feel like Alvin Kamara is a lock to get suspended. I don't think Joe Mixon will. There is some talks right now about contract when it comes to Joe Mixon. Of course, FantasyPros doesn't have that pulled up because why would that be important, right? It's pretty important, but I think he'll end up taking the pay cut to stay with the team. I'd really be shocked if he was gone, if I'm being honest with you. Aaron Jones, to me, this is a Green Bay Packers team that is going to want to run the ball at a really high clip with Jordan Love under center. They have a great defense. They're going to be able to run the ball a lot in the games, even if Jordan Love isn't even all that effective. Plus, these young quarterbacks, they want to take that safety valve. Aaron Jones is a tremendous pass catcher. I'm going with Aaron Jones here. I have Jahmyr Gibbs ranked ahead of him, but if I'm being honest with you guys, I'm kind of thinking about moving Aaron Jones ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs in my rankings. I feel like Aaron Jones is just much safer than Jahmyr Gibbs, and I feel a lot more confident starting week one with Aaron Jones compared to Jahmyr Gibbs, where I feel like Jahmyr Gibbs might work in to potentially finish as a top 12 back, but I think early on Aaron Jones is going to smash. After Aaron Jones, we see TJ Hawkinson and J.K. Dobbins. I have been someone that is just as out as it gets on J.K. Dobbins. I think he's a good player, but I'm going to be honest, they have a lot of options. Gus Edwards, going to be back. J.K. Dobbins, also another one of these guys kind of dealing with situations with the contract. He's not practicing right now. It's just, there's a lot of bullshit happening right now with these NFL running backs, but I get it, because if you're the running back, you believe you have all this worth, and NFL teams right now are very low on running backs in terms of paying them the big buckaroos. So looking at the board here, we could go triple running back, but if I'm being honest with you, I think that's a little bit crazy of a strategy when we have some solid wide receivers available. I don't like DK Metcalf that much in fantasy this season. I think he's a tremendous player. I think in terms of just ranking wide receivers in the NFL, you could argue he is a top 10, top 8 wide receiver in the National Football League, having freak athleticism, being built like a Greek god. When you're as tall as the fucking Eiffel Tower and you can run as fast as Usain Bolt, right, you're going to end up being a great NFL player. But the problem is there's just so much competition around him. The question is it crazy to want to go with Amari Cooper or go with Chris Godwin over DK Metcalf. I don't think it's that crazy to go with Amari Cooper, but we also could go tight end. We've seen a decent amount of tight ends come off the board, 3 already, Andrews, Kelsey, and Hawkinson. I feel fine in the 4th round going quarterback, but I have Justin Fields ranked the highest of all these quarterbacks available. I don't mind taking Burrow or Jackson over him, but at the end of the day, I think it's possible that Fields falls to us at the 5-11, so I don't necessarily want to do that. I don't think any of these wide receivers will fall back to us, so we're going to go with my best wide receiver available, which is Amari Cooper. Again, I heavily believe that Deshaun Watson is going to bounce back this season. I understand he looked like absolute dog shit last season, right? It was like watching paint dry was better than watching that guy play. Jacoby Brissett looked miles better than him. It was embarrassing to watch, but at the end of the day, I think that was a lot of rust. There was a lot of nerves going with Deshaun Watson. Probably needed a massage after every single game. Can't get those anymore though, buddy. So I think Deshaun Watson's going to be more locked in 2023, and Amari Cooper is the clear wide receiver 1 there. Obviously, there are some rumors about DeAndre Hopkins coming there. If D-Hop shows up as a Cleveland Brown, then my Amari Cooper take is going to be that I still like him, but probably not at the 402. After Amari Cooper, we see Cam Akers, DK Metcalf, Dameon Pierce, Jahmyr Gibbs, Deebo Samuel, Lamar Jackson, Joe Mixon, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett in my pocket. Skirt! George Kittle. The 5th round opens with DeAndre Hopkins, Dalvin Cook, David Montgomery, Joe Shiesty, Terry McLaurin, Wiki, DJ Moore, my guy Calvin Ridley, Drizzy, Drake London, James Conner, and Dallas Goedert. Now, I am definitely not someone who's looking to completely fade the tight end position this year, but when you get into this range, it feels pretty gross. I like Darren Waller the most out of these guys, but it feels kind of gross to draft Darren Waller in the 5th round. Or even in the 6th round, when I've seen him fall to the 7th or the 8th round in a bunch of drafts. I think Kyle Pitts has all the upside. He's still that freak athlete. There's a reason why the Atlanta Falcons drafted this guy out of Florida. The guy looked exquisite in college, but let's be honest with you, with Desmond Ridder being the fucking starting quarterback, right? You can't be all that confident. Even though one of these years, Kyle Pitts is going to smash. I'd just rather be the more cautious player where it's like, all right, if Pitts falls to me to range where I'm fine taking him, go right ahead. I'm not full fading him, but I'm also not on the Kyle Pitts bandwagon. I'm not controlling the hype train. If you guys have ended up enjoying this far, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It helps me out a ton. So the running backs at this point are absolutely disgusting. They are as disgusting as it gets. Not because I think that Rachaad White is necessarily a bad player or DeAndre Swift. They just don't feel like 5th round picks, if I'm being honest with you, right? These guys feel like they should go in like the 7th or the 8th round. So I'm just not going to draft them. If one of them falls to me, I'd be interested. Look at our team again. We have Pollard, Aaron Jones, Stephon Diggs, and Amari Cooper. A chef's kiss start to the draft. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this. I think we are going to go quarterback because while I love Chris Godwin, I wouldn't mind falling into the Christian Watson kind of tier here, or Michael Pittman. So I'm just going to go with Justin Fields. Again, I am a humongous believer of Justin Fields potentially finishing as the quarterback number 1. I am someone who thinks that Justin Fields is a much better passer than I would say most people think. Now, I don't think he's going to go out there and surgically slice through a defense like O.J. Simpson sliced through that lady, but at the end of the day, I think that Justin Fields is going to be able to throw the ball a lot better with DJ Moore there. I think he has that crazy rushing upside. I think he could finish as the quarterback number 1. So he's my pick here. He might have been able to fall to us in the 6th round, but I don't want to chance things when I feel as confident in a quarterback as I do with Justin Fields. Now, I have made fun of Justin Fields in the past. He did not look good at the beginning of last year, but it really seemed like that offense, Matt Eberflus, really transitioned things around the second half of the season to, hey, this is Fields' strength. He's fast. He's explosive. He looks good when he runs the ball. So let's try and do that. And then things magically started working, even though their wide receiver core was gross. I still don't understand why the fuck they traded their 2nd round pick, which is basically a 1st round pick, for Chase Claypool, but I digress. I think Rachaad White or Swift would be fine here, but I do want a wide receiver. I have been someone who has been notoriously low on Jerry Jeudy, but that doesn't mean that I think Jerry Jeudy's guaranteed to bust. I think Jerry Jeudy has top 12 wide receiver upside. We saw down the stretch of last season, he looked a lot better. Mr. Unlimited looked a little chubby last year. Let's be honest now. I'm not body shaming here. I'm not the skinniest bastard out there either. So, more power to you, Russell Wilson. But he looks a lot leaner. He's looking good. I saw him doing some crazy workout on Twitter. It was not as crazy as the Jameis Winston workout. If you've ever seen some Jameis Winston workouts, or if you've never seen them, look them up. After this video, Jameis Winston does some crazy training. He'll be like running up a mountain with a goat strapped to his back. Now, he's not actually like chasing chickens around like Rocky or something, but he does some crazy workouts. Russell Wilson was like sliding on ice, like these ice things that they use when you train for hockey, and he was just going back and forth with the football. It's pretty funny to see, but he does look a lot leaner. Sean Payton should be able to transition this offense into looking a lot better compared to Nathaniel the Stooge Hackett. Jerry Jeudy is an immensely talented guy. We just haven't seen him do it in the NFL, right? Wide receiver 54, 84, 26. I'm going to take the shot on him in this video. Again, this is something that I try to preach. If you're doing one draft of fantasy next year, just draft the guys you like the best, right? I like Michael Pittman or Christian Watson way more than I like Jerry Jeudy. But if I'm going to do 10 drafts, which I'm going to do, like 10 redraft leagues, and I do a million best ball drafts, I want to draft different players, right? What if I'm drastically wrong on Michael Pittman? What if Anthony Richardson looks like Stevie Wonder in the pocket and he can't hit water out of a boat, right? What if that happens? I'm going to look like a fucking douchebag drafting Michael Pittman Jr. in every single draft. So we're going to go with Jerry Jeudy here, the Russell Wilson comeback, Mr. Unlimited. Just plays better this season. That's really all we need for Jerry Jeudy to have a really good year. I've been a Courtland Sutton guy in the past, but let's be honest, Jerry Jeudy's definitely better than Courtland Sutton. After Jerry Jeudy, we see Isaiah Pacheco, Mike Dubb, Mike Williams, Kyle Pitts, Christian Watson, Rashad White, Michael Pittman, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Pat Freiermuth, Mike Evans, Trevor Lawrence, Touchdown Jesus himself, DeAndre Swift, Brian Robinson, Hollywood Brown, Deontay Johnson, Treylon Burks, Dickie Dak Prescott, or Justin Herbert the pervert, then Dickie Dak Prescott, Rashad Penny with 2 A's, and then Jahan Dotson. We don't have a tight end yet, but again, I'm not trying to jam things here. I don't think there's, I do like Waller more than these other guys, but I'm going to be honest with you, I don't feel bad having Dalton Schultz or like David Njoku as my tight end one. Now, maybe I'm not trying to have the craziest bet on the Cleveland Browns offense with Cooper and Njoku, but again, I am someone who is pretty high on Deshaun Watson this year. I think he's going to bounce back. Any of these quarterbacks, we already have Fields, but if we didn't have Fields, anyone before or after Goff, I feel a little gross, but anyone in this tier, I'd be perfectly fine with, if I'm being honest with you. So looking at the running backs here, if Madison fell this far, I'm taking him. I don't think this is necessarily unrealistic because I've seen people on Underdog draft Alexander Madison in like the third round or the fourth round, but I think that's like a complete reach. Like I think the 6th, the 7th makes sense. I think some people will be worried about the other running backs behind him. I think some people don't even think of Alexander Madison of being as good as he actually is, right? This is a guy that could legitimately be a top 5 running back every single week. I think the 7th round might be he's fallen a little bit, but I also don't think it's that crazy to say that he falls into the 7th round, if I'm being honest with you. And I think a lot of like the ESPN, the NFL, where a lot of people do their fantasy football drafts, they're not going to be as high in Alexander Madison. I mean, the ADPs, like if you do a bunch of Underdog drafts or you're doing drafts on Sleeper or on here, you're going to be shocked at how different a draft looks when you hop on ESPN to do your draft with your friends. You're going to be shocked because there's going to be players that I've talked about that I love. I'm in love with. I think that these guys could finish super high and they're going to like the 11th round. It makes no sense. And we see it every single year. It really puts your head on a swivel when you're in the draft. So after Alexander Madison, we see Deshaun Watson followed by George Pickens. I'm a huge Deontay Johnson guy, not too big on George Pickens, if I'm being honest with you. Maybe my hate's gone a little too far, but I just think Deontay Johnson's the clear alpha wide receiver in this offense, the guy going to be seeing a million targets. I just don't see how George Pickens really gets it done. Looking here, the running back position is going to kerplunk off the edge of the earth relatively soon, but I'm so confident in the 3 backs we have right now that I feel like it would almost be stupid to draft Javonte Williams here. Or like Khalil Herbert. We're definitely not drafting A.J. Dillon because we already have Aaron Jones. I'm not handcuffing my running back in the 8th round. That's just stupid. We already have Alexander Madison, but I do love this Minnesota offense. I love it. This seems like the new head coach that they got recently, things are going a lot better. Kirko Chains looks great. Jordan Addison is going to inherit roughly 1 billion targets. And I think that Jordan Addison is going to be a smash pick here in Minnesota. I want a bad bitch, Jordan Addison Ray. Jordan Addison in college looked really good. He is on an offense that wants to throw the ball a ton. Obviously, Kirk Cousins is the sexiest quarterback in the NFL. He's not like Patrick Mahomes or something. But I do think that in this system, we've seen Kirk Cousins funnel the ball to Adam Thielen. He's certainly going to funnel the ball to Jordan Addison. He is much better than his counterpart in KJ Osborne. Obviously, Hawkinson being there isn't the best, but when you're comparing Addison to guys like Jackson Smith and Najigba, who's probably the wide receiver 3 on his team, Cortland Sutton, Brandon Cooks, Kadarius Toney, who might play 4 fucking games next season, he probably knows the nurses in New York and in Kansas City so well because the guy's always banged up, man. And I'll root for injuries, so I hope Kadarius Toney plays all year. And then he ends up sucking ass because I just don't think he's really all that good. But I'll eat my words when Kadarius Toney somehow is the wide receiver 1 in the Chiefs, stays healthy all season, and I look like a fucking buffoon, right, for missing out on the wide receiver 1 with the best quarterback in the league. After Jordan Addison, we see Alvin Kamara, Damian Harris, Khalil Herbert, Jackson Smith, and the Jigba, Rashad Masterbateman, Cortland Sutton, Kadarius Toney, Jamal with 2 A's, Williams, A.J. Dillon, James Cook. The 9th opens with Gabe Davis, Javonte Williams, Daniel Dimes, Brandon Cooks, Jamison Williams, Elijah Moore, Jacoby Myers, Elijah Mitchell, Antonio Gibson, and Tyler Algier. A lot of hype coming out of camp on Elijah Moore. Haven't seen this man do anything in the NFL, but maybe it was just the Jets stink on him. You know, we saw that early when Sam Darnold came to Carolina. He was buzzing a little bit, but obviously that buzz wore out. You want to know whose buzz did not wore out? The coach of, I think, Virginia Tech, right? The basketball team. Damn, that joke would have been that joke would have probably hit pretty well if I remembered his name or what school he coached. But that guy got a DUI the other day. So what a fucking idiot, guys. Don't drink and drive. Do not drink and drive. Seriously, it's just stupid to do. But this isn't. There's no ad for Uber on today's video. Uber, hit me up. Hit the line if you want to advertise. So looking at the board here, this team is fucking sexual. This is a team you take your Johnson out and crank to afterwards, like you're Ruxin from the league. Darren Waller, it's so unrealistic that he falls to the 9th round that I'm just not going to do it. But if he was here in most situations, I am just smash picking Darren Waller. But Nick, Darren Waller always gets hurt. Sure. And that's gross when you have to draft him in like the 4th round, right? But now he's going in like the 7th, 8th, the 9th, the 10th round. So I feel perfectly fine taking him here. But we'll wait because, again, I think that's pretty unrealistic. We have 3 running backs. We have 4 wide receivers. Again, I'm pretty confident in my running backs, but running backs have been flying off the board. I want to get the boy Zach Charbonnet. I think he could actually be the running back 1 in Seattle. Maybe not to start off the season, but we've already heard Pete Carroll talk about how, hey, this is going to be a battle for the running back 1 role, right? Kenneth Walker isn't just inheriting the number 1 role. Zach Charbonnet could take it from him. And even if Zach Charbonnet doesn't take it from him, he is one of the best handcuffs in fantasy football. We saw the usage of Kenneth Walker last year when Penny went down. I think Charbonnet is in a pretty good situation. I think he could take over. Not necessarily week 1 again, but I think it's possible. Where did Kenneth Walker go in this draft? The 3rd round. That pick is just disgusting. Do not do that. So after we went with Zach Charbonnet, we saw Nico Collins as well as Samaje Perine come off the board. Denver, please don't add Dalvin Cook because Samaje Perine and Javonte Williams is very fun. With Dalvin Cook in there, that is just disgusting. And you don't want to draft any of those guys if that is the case. I was someone who was kind of talked themselves backwards, kind of talk themselves into Juju, even though I've been a Juju denier. I've been a Juju Smith-Schuster hater for years, it almost feels like. I kind of talked myself back into him, and then I realized I'd rather just draft Tyquan Thornton rounds later. Juju already banged up. Will Fantasy Pros have that news? Yep, unlikely to practice due to injury. Not good. Kind of worrisome. I'm going to go with another guy who's pretty much always hurt. We're going to go with Michael Thomas. Now, I get it. Nick, Michael Thomas, he's always hurt. Nick, this, that, and the other thing. Well, guess what, motherfucker? It's the 10th round. It's not the 3rd round. It's not the 5th round. Early on, I do get it. I like being safe, right? I like putting the metaphorical condom on my team. Don't be silly, wrap your willy, right? Early on, be careful, right? Don't draft someone who is fucking hurt going into the year, right? Don't draft someone early on that you feels risky, right? And I get that. The first 3 rounds, right? Be safe, man. Wrap the condom, have the girl rocking with some birth control, right? But now in round 10, now you rip the fucking condom off, and you go. You go for it. Michael Thomas might play 1 game. He might play 17 games. If he stays healthy all year, I think he finishes ahead of Chris Olave. So go ahead, poo-poo the pick. Quentin Johnston also would have been very acceptable there, or Rondale Moore. But I'm going Michael Pittman. Or not Michael Pittman, I'm going Michael Thomas. I've talked myself into Michael Thomas again. It's been a bad thing to do over the last couple of years. But again, if he plays and you draft him like the 10th round, you're going to look like a goddamn genius. Because even last year, when he played, he looked good. It's just he couldn't stay healthy. After Michael Thomas, we see Donta Foreman, Jeff Wilson Jr., Ezekiel Elliott, Devin Singletary, Odell Beckham Jr., Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyler, Boyd, Kenneth Gainwell, Alan Lazard, Raheem Mostert, QJ, Quentin Johnston, Jalen Warren, Darnell, here comes the money, money. Zay Flowers, Adam Thielen, Sky with 2 Wise more, Zay Jones, Rondale Moore, DPJ, and DJ Chark, do, baby Chark. Darren Waller still available. Again, that just makes no sense in the 11th round. We're probably just going to continue to draft bench pieces, if I'm being honest with you. No kicker, no defense just yet. I'm going to look for any upside running backs still available. I like Gus Edwards. I like Chuba. I like A-Chain. Look, I feel like Dalvin Cook is really going to end up as a Dolphin. Nick, you're a Dolphins fan, so that's why you think that. I don't want him to be a Dolphin, if I'm being honest with you. Well, I'd be mad if he is, no. But, like, I don't agree with necessarily paying a guy like Dalvin Cook, but I get if they want to do it. We already have one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL. But if we don't get him, then A-Chain, man, oh man, I would be salivating to get him in the 11th round. Excellent pass catcher out of college. Looks like he could work in, like, tandem with Raheem Mostert. I don't know why I forgot their names. Raheem Mostert as well as Jeff Wilson Jr. So I think he's going to be a steal here in the 11th round, but there is still a chance that they get Dalvin Cook. Kendre Miller, if Alvin Kamara is suspended, could just be the guy there, right? Like, out of college, people were comping him to Alvin Kamara, to DeAndre Swift. So he's a great pass catcher. We'll go with Kendre Miller here. I really do think Alvin Kamara is going to get suspended, though. I like Jamal Williams a ton, but I think Kendre Miller going multiple rounds later sometimes. Now, on Underdog, they kind of go within a round of each other typically. But on here, let's see. Where did Jamal Williams go? Jamal Williams. Where's he at? Did he even get picked yet? He got picked in the 8th. And we got Kendre Miller in the 11th. Like, to me, I'd rather just wait 3 rounds and take the other guy. So I think we're just going to wait till the last round and take a tight end because no one is taking a tight end. But we don't want to get caught at the altar here with a different woman. So we're going to go with Dalton Schultz. I talked about Dalton Schultz. Again, I would pick Waller over Dalton Schultz, but we're going to go with Dalton Schultz because I think it makes more sense. I think he might be the number 2 guy in terms of targets for the Houston Texans. I talked about it in yesterday's video. 5 guys that you should be drafting that no one else is talking about. No one else is talking about. We talked about Tua. We talked about Dalton Schultz as well. That's just a spoiler. Just 2 players. There were 3 other ones. Make sure you guys check that out after this. But yeah, I really like Dalton Schultz a ton. I think that CJ Stroud is an excellent addition to this offense. CJ Stroud has wowed the beat reporters. I've never really seen reports of a rookie quarterback, and he was like a first-round pick, and the beat reporters were saying this guy fucking reeks or something, right? We never really see that, but it wouldn't shock me if CJ Stroud actually looked good because Davis Mills is just ass. So here we're going to close the draft with a wide receiver to close out this team. Romeo Doubs has gotten some solid noise, but I always take Isaiah Hodgins, so we're not going to do that. Isaiah Hodgins is probably the wide receiver 1 on the Giants, and he goes in round 13. Jalen Hyatt struggling, allegedly, in work early on. Is it going to tell us that? Yeah, working with the 3rd team in spring. That's not great, right? You want to be on the 1st team. Number 1, my wife, I like. Let's see here. Again, we don't need to be diddling or sitting here with a thumb up our ass for the last pick on our team. So we are going to go with, drum roll, please. We are going to go, this time, we're going to go with Alec Pierce. Could be the number 2 receiver on Indianapolis. I think he looked pretty decent last year. Obviously didn't have that great of a season, but I think if if Anthony Richardson is legit, like, Alec Pierce could be a great pick in the later rounds. Again, I do kind of like Romeo Dobbs. I like Isaiah Hodgins. But again, when it's your 13th round pick, right, what are the odds this guy's even on our team 3-4 weeks into the season? Not very high, right? That's kind of how I think of these things. So I just take, like, the highest upside possible. Alec Pierce, Cordero Patterson, and then we see the Buffalo Bills defense. We are going to go with our kicker first because on here, they always go defenses early. So I want to go Justin Tucker, the fucker. If you want to go with Tyler Bass, Daniel Carlson, any of those other kickers, go right ahead. I'm not going to argue with you on the best kickers. But for defenses, again, this is the strategy that I use every single year. It always works. You just draft the defense looking at their week 1 opponent. Who do they play week 1? And you want, obviously, to play against an offense that isn't very good. So the Steelers, they're playing the Niners. That's not good. The Saints, they have pretty good defense, and they're playing up against Tennessee, which is an offense that I expect to not be all that great. So I think that's a great pick. And then week 2, if they have a hard opponent, say they're playing up against the Bills in week 2. I didn't even read it. I don't think that's who they're playing. But then you obviously don't want to play the Saints defense against the Bills, and you would just switch them out every single week. I make videos on that during the season. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We got to be on Fantasy Pros, but who cares? It's an A+ in my heart. Justin Fields is our quarterback. Our running backs are Tony Pollard and Aaron Jones. Our wide receivers are Diggs and Amari Cooper. Our tight end is Dalton Schultz. Our flex is Jerry Jeudy. Our defense is the Saints. Our kicker is Justin Tucker. Our bench is I want a bad bitch, Jordan Addison Ray, Alexander Madison, Zach Charbonnet, Michael Thomas, Kendre Miller, and Alec Pierce. Also, interesting note about the Saints, their schedule is cupcake, light work, easy, very easy. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, again, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I love you guys all so much. If you have any comments, leave them down below. I'm going to try to make these mock draft videos a little bit shorter, but I always end up rambling on, talking about some random things, but I think you guys enjoy that. So I love you guys. Have a great one, and as always, good boy!